Are you putting me on trial?
Welcome back to Sit in Judgment with new equipment. Where we sit in judgment of Dragon Age.
The Veilguard specifically.
A lot of spoilers for the entire
this is
the
full
Veilguard game.
spoilers. I also want to put out a disclaimer. The critique is purely subjective. I am not trying to start fights about what is correct and what is incorrect and who is the biggest Dragon Age fan. And if you like the game, you are not wrong. I am very happy that you like the game, and I like parts of the game too.
And I like more parts.
Don't immediately think that I am a hater. My opinion is valid as well. That's it.
I'm not worried about people thinking that because you're all sensible and nice people. Right. The fandom has been an interesting place to be in recently.
There's such a condescending tone
Yeah.
to a lot of the discussions, which means that there's only two camps. It's you like the game and you're stupid for liking it, or you don't like the game and you're a bigot.
Yes.
And that's why you don't like it, which is not correct. I think the majority of people are in the camp of some things are good, these things are not good.
Just because we think one thing or I think one thing, Lisa may think a different thing, that doesn't mean that your opinions, that we think that that's wrong.
I think that's a main takeaway.
Yeah.
We are going to talk about specifically Act 3 and then some overall final thoughts about what we thought about the game.
And if I know us, probably some other stuff too.
Probably. A lot of the romance, probably. My cold open to, like, in my notes is just, holy shit.
Holy shit.
Holy shit. Because Act 3 really, I don't know, I don't want to say saved the game, but I had the best time playing Act 3.
It was so intense.
That was the most Dragon Age for me.
I thought it was really good. It really reminded me a lot of the suicide mission at the end of Mass Effect 2. I think they quite obviously drew a lot of inspiration from that. And I think that it was handled really well. And I was really happy about that.
Yeah. It really, for me, it really hammered home the message of, you really are just some guy.
Yes.
I think I say in my notes, everything goes to shit repeatedly. And I love it.
Yes. Like it's really, and I think entirety of Act 3, I really feel the severity of the situation.
Exactly.
And how awful everything really is.
Exactly.
Because during a lot of the game, I think especially during Act 2, you have this looming threat of everything that is going wrong and the actual, not gods, but gods that are trying to destroy everything. And the blight, which even the tiny bit of blight that has been in previous blights, that's been such a disaster.
Yeah.
And now the level of blight in the entire city being blighted, but then everyone is still like, Tasha's mom comes to dinner.
Yeah, it's like I couldn't possibly deal with this looming threat of the world ending unless I have closure. Sometimes it works, but a lot of the times it's the difference in how you play games, right? Hayden, for example, when he plays games, is like, I want to do the main mission because we are literally saving the galaxy. Yeah. Why would I do a companion quest? Because it takes you out of the severity. And I feel like Act 2 kind of forces you to disassociate from the severity of what's going on.
I think one thing they could have used more is the faction ratings, because it kind of reminded me of, in Mass Effect 3, you have a galactic readiness level, kind of, which is like, how ready for the end of this war are you actually? And I think that's sort of what these star ratings are. Like, are these factions ready to handle what's coming their way?
Yeah.
And I think that, like, a lot of the side quests do provide strength to the factions, which is an in-game realistic motivator to do those things, I think.
Yeah.
But when it comes to some of the companions, it just doesn't feel realistic to do that stuff. And I get it, everyone needs to be focused, but honestly, I would, and this isn't an original take, I've seen other people say it, I would be so disappointed in my companions if it was like, we are actively fighting gods, like in the fight. They were like, I'm sorry, but my heart just wasn't in the fight. Yeah. Because I was still thinking about blah, 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 blah. I was about to bring up Tosh's side quest again, but it's not just Tosh. It's at some level, it's the same for everyone, kind of.
If you look at Davrin's quest, for example, it's tied to the blight. So it makes more sense that it's like, you don't have time to not do it now because they are going to be blighted now. Yeah. For Belara, for example, it's kind of like, we can deal with this later.
Yes, exactly.
Like, this is a minor deity problem. We have a major deity problem times 2.
Yes.
Can we chill on that maybe? Because I think it's kind of you need to be able to compartmentalize if you're going to save the world, which is what you're doing.
But I'm also honestly a little bit impressed that they can be distracted by their own, like, sometimes minor personal issues during those high intensity situations. Like if you're in a life or death situation, the adrenaline is flowing and you're like fighting people and there's attackers coming, that they even have the brain capacity to go,
yeah,
but what about my brother though? Like how?
yeah.
Like, I applaud you for your ability to focus on multiple things at once. I think maybe they should just hire, like, the Veilguard should have just been people with like ADHD to make them hyper focus on it. Like,
Yeah.
the preparations could have been difficult, but I feel like during the actual fights, everyone would have been so focused.
Yeah, I have some notes on the companion dynamics.
Yes.
In regards to Rook and your Rook's motivations compared to your previous player characters. But let's circle back to Act 3 first.
Yes.
You've been taken out of it kind of because, you had to solve your companion issues. But, we're done with that.
Mhm.
We have a week to prepare, guys.
Yeah.
Actually, you don't. It's happening right now.
Yes.
Shit, fuck.
I felt so stressed in the best way.
Yeah. It's like, Solas is trying to help us. Oh, shit. I was tricked by the god of trickery.
Honestly, by the end, like, it made sense throughout the whole thing, but in the end, it was so funny when he kept betraying you, because after that first initial betrayal, every like mini betrayal, it was so obvious that he was just going to keep betraying you.
And yet, I ate that shit up.
Yes.
He was like, I've decided that as long as we take down Elgernon, I'll leave the Veil alone.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just focused on this now. And my Rook said, you gotta be fucking shitting me. But I sit there and go, yeah, I'm glad you see reason. And then, nope.
Oh, because I noted his phrasing there of the Veil won't come down by my hand. And I was like, what about someone else's hand, Solas? Do you know something I don't? And it's true that the Veil wasn't going to come down by his hand. Solas does not lie, but he does
admit the, omit the truth. I don't know. But yeah, I enjoyed those last moments with Solas when it's also like, I have been guiding you this whole time to have so much regret that you are stuck here. And I'm like, beautiful storytelling.
Yes, it was beautiful, because I also thought a lot about during the, like, as the conversations in the Fade with Solas were happening, some of the questions that were like, I was like, how is this relevant? Like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to figure this out? You don't have a lot of options right now, my guy. But it was just him trying to groom us.
Oh my god, we were groomed.
We were groomed by Solas.
Solas is sentenced. Found guilty of grooming.
Maybe.
Literally, though, that is such a good point.
Yeah. Maybe we're all Solas at heart.
We were all the villains. We were the villains. We found along the way. I felt completely not in control, even though, and I say this in my little notes too, Sola decided to let the Veil be, if we just defeat Elgernon, play it again, you fool.
Yeah.
Even though it's a video game, and I know that ultimately I will save the day in one way or another, but it didn't feel like that.
No.
And the beautiful setup of choose Davin or Harding to go, and I was playing 4D chess in my mind, because I was like, they want to trick you into thinking it's too easy for us to kill the first person. So you're going to choose someone, assume that they're going to die, and then they won't die. So I'm going to send someone that I don't want to die. So I sent Davin. And then he got murked. And I was so sad, especially when Hassan like jumps in after him. And I'm like, no, what did I do?
That's so sad.
Oh, it was terrible.
I think that was really something that, again, Mass Effect taught me in the second game, that because the first time I played Mass Effect 2 in the suicide mission, you have to sort of choose different people for different tasks. And the first time I played it, I tried to keep my favorite character, Tali, safe by keeping her with me. And so I gave the first mission to someone who was very unsuited to it, because I was like, I don't care if this character dies, as long as the job gets done. I don't care if they die during the mission, because I was like, no, not everyone is Jacob. Because he also keeps volunteering for jobs that he's underqualified for. And I was like, if you think you can do this, go for it. But the thing is that because he was so slow doing the task, it did get Tali killed, even though she was with me, because she couldn't make it through the doors in time, but Jacob made it. And that's when I learned the lesson that for these missions, you always send who you think is the best suited, regardless of sentimentality. So I sent Harding because I thought that she had a good point in that she's a scout and she's going to be able to get there quickly.
I listened more to the advice of there will be Darkspawn that needs to be held back. You're so right. You are qualified for this, my guy.
I mean, they're both very qualified in different ways.
After Davin, I really started to pay attention to who I was sending where.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I don't know, it was such a nice way to raise the stakes going forward. I was terrified.
Yeah.
Like sending Lucanus away was the
Mhm.
hardest part. I was like, I don't want anything to happen
know, but he
to
was
my
so-
baby boy.
So obviously the most qualified person for dealing with the
Yeah, it's like there's a
Venatori.
bunch of mages.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like, who are you gonna send to kill the mage?
Yeah.
We have the dragon hunter, we have the detective,
Yeah, the necromancer.
we have the necromancer, the veil jumper. Oh yeah, and the mage killer.
No, I was so upset when Davin died.
Yeah.
Because he was also like, I just had him with me on a lot of missions because
Yeah.
I enjoyed that character and I think he had good abilities. I just saved all of the griffins
Yeah.
and then bye.
But I didn't realize that Asan also dies.
Yeah, he does. He jumps in after him. I don't think there's a difference if you're a warden.
No.
But I would really like to think that if your Rook is a warden, Asan stays and then it becomes your griffin.
Yeah. It's a very difficult choice, but it really makes you realize how serious it is.
Yeah.
And like no one is safe. Before, during the game, has been kind of like, it's like everyone's gonna be safe. You know that.
Yeah.
Like they can't even die during fights.
Yeah, but at least, oh, you mean in the Veilguard?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry,
I thought you
the
meant
Veilguard.
like compared to other games because I'm also
No.
like, yeah, they can't die, but they can actually leave.
Yes,
Whilst in
exactly.
Veilguard, you can't progress until you have everyone, and when you have everyone, they cannot leave. You
No.
cannot make them leave.
Exactly.
Which I kind of miss.
Yes.
Because I also feel like it would be a great way to punish such behavior of like, oh, you made this person leave your party. Now someone else is going to die.
I thought that the final act was really, really good.
Yeah, it was very strong.
Solid.
Yeah.
And I was so worried about everyone, and it was so cool watching Rook and Solas fighting as the wolf.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
Yeah.
It really, because I'm wondering like, how are they going to make Solas fight along with me to get to Algernon without him feeling underpowered? Because obviously if he was
He's the elven god. And I will say, sorry for butting.
No, go ahead.
But I did say to Hayden as a note when Solas joins for a short while and you go through, I'm like, this is like working in front of your boss. Like I'm terrified of getting my ass kicked because I'll feel pathetic if Solas is just there watching. So I was so careful to just avoid damage.
How did your Rook see Solas throughout this game?
I think she started out in a like, I don't trust you as far as I can throw you, and this is your fault.
Yeah.
I got to clean up your mess, basically. And then she slowly, like, I think I chose the option to say when Solas gives you a compliment, that's like, that must have been hard for you to say thank you, kind of. So I think in the end, she did come around and actually trust him. And well, then when she got super played, she then went, you got to be fucking kidding me. You want my help? Fuck you. What about yours?
I think my Rook was more in the camp of, I'm going to act like I trust you, but I do not. Which is kind of funny considering that your Rook was sort of tougher than mine. But my Rook had no trust for Solas. But I think my Rook didn't have a lot of trust in anyone, to be honest. I think she was just managing people a lot. I think she cared for them, like all the companions, but I think she was managing some of them for sure.
Yeah.
For like the mission.
Yeah.
So I think she was kind of not ruthless. That's not at all the word I'm looking for. Pragmatic. I think she was quite pragmatic in the way she dealt with people.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. And I think that comes into her like issues of not feeling like she belongs anywhere really.
Yeah.
So she has to like stay on everyone's good side.
Yeah.
But she's not going to trust that she's going to stay there, which was proven by the Veil Jumpers half kicking her out for saving people's lives. But honestly, I think with a lot of the faction backgrounds, at least some of them feel like they needed to find a reason why you're not with your faction anymore.
Yeah.
That is understandable from the faction side, but also doesn't make your Rook look bad.
Yeah.
Like how do you find a reason that makes you look good and doesn't make the faction look bad either?
Yeah.
That's a tricky balance to strike. And I think some faction backgrounds did that better. Like now I'm doing a replay and I'm doing Lord of Fortune.
Yeah.
And that makes more sense. It was because the background for Lord of Fortune character, Rook, is that you were double-crossed by some like Tevinter politician or something. And you kill them. But it turns out that that person was actually really politically important. So it creates a lot of political drama. So the lords are like, hey, can you like remove yourself for a little while so we can deal with this? That makes sense. And it doesn't make Rook look bad.
Yeah, I saw someone have a take that I found really interesting because they said that, yes, whilst they see and agree with the critique of Rook is too nice and you can't really be a jerk, they said that it makes sense because Rook is the first person who is willingly on this mission.
That's
because
true.
she chooses to work with Varric. It makes sense that Rook is then like, well, we got to do this. My motivation from the start was to help solve this.
That is such a good point, because honestly, like, this is maybe the first Dragon Age main character that has done this entirely willingly.
Yeah.
Because the Warden
is just out of options.
Yeah.
And
Hawk is also out of options.
Like Hawk, things just go wrong for Hawk.
Yeah.
So of course they're there, and of course they can have different takes on what happens. The Inquisitor is also just thrown in there.
Yes, and you can't really leave.
No, because you're the only one who can, like, yeah, it makes sense. But Rook is willingly on that job, employed by Varric. Yeah.
Speaking of Varric, we were right. Varric was dead all along.
Have a note on this. I have a note on this, and it's in bold, and it says, "I am in BioWare's walls." I knew Varric was dead the whole time.
Yes. But that was like, even though I had my suspicions because of what we had talked about, it was still such a gut punch.
Yeah.
I cried.
Yeah.
I will say that I cried quite a lot, because it was also just the tragedy of Rook realizing that Varric was actually dead. And now that I'm replaying the game, it makes me feel really lonely in some ways when Rook is talking to Varric and I know that she has already lost him.
I didn't have the same gut reaction because I knew it, but I did find it interesting because of the like sort of humiliation of her then realizing that everything that Varric's been saying is what she wants him to say.
Yeah.
It's what she needed to hear at the time, and she's just been like, whilst she's been acting like a therapist to everyone else, she's also been her own therapist.
Yes.
In a child self-soothing desperation way, and that hit more, I think, for me, because I also chose the option of like, I think I knew all along that you were dead.
Yeah.
But my tangent then goes on to say, the voice you hear at night hissing about a wedding DLC where Viago is my maid of honor and I can ask Emmerich to give me away. It's me. Do it, or I'll chew through your Ethernet cables like a hamster with a death wish, you cowards. Because I really want a Citadel-like DLC where they make up for the lack of interactions with your romance.
Yeah, I've seen some statistics that people have brought up about how little romance time there is.
Yeah.
I think it was like an average of 17 minutes.
Yeah, because I've been watching footage of the romances that I don't plan to do. So I will say that seeing Nev in a romance setting makes me like that character more, because it gives her a lot more depth that you don't get to see. But every single romance follows the same formula. So it's not just, oh, Lucanus turns up at your room to have a like one-on-one, and that's how he handles it. Every single companion handles it the same way and shows up at your room. And that takes away from the personality of them.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's very true. There's so little romance content, and I think that that's really sad. But I will say about Nev, we're going to talk about choices in the next episode, but I will say that I'm seeing her in a new light now that I am playing again, and I saved Min Rathus instead of Teresa from the Dragon. She's much more relaxed and feels more at peace, and like there's less of a wall to Rook, which makes sense, but it also absolutely broke my heart to do that to Lucanus. But anyway, that's for next episode.
Yeah, but watching the romances and realizing that all of them have the same pattern to follow made me mad. And this is the thing. I wouldn't have been upset to the same degree, but I said this before the game came out when I was ranting, that they are digging their own grave by hyping up so many like parts of it, because the game will never be able to measure up to how much you are hyping it up. When you say these are the most like thought out characters, they just really they shot themselves in the foot.
Yes,
because we are going to look for proof, and instead you have kind of half-assed it. Sorry, but it feels half-assed when you just put out a template. Okay, we need to fill these gaps with all of the characters.
Yes.
What can they say? Okay, we'll put that there. Okay, fine, we'll put that there.
Like, I like a lot of the companions, and I think that most of them feel relevant to the story and well written. But I don't think that they don't feel more realistic to me or richer or whatever than the other companions from previous games.
No.
Like, they have no more dimension to them than the previous companions.
No, I would argue and say they have less dimension. I don't know. There's just something missing. Another thought that I've had is how, yes, it does feel more like you are a group, but I feel like Rook is so disconnected from the group. Like, they are all friends, and they are all hanging out and having things going on. No one is asking Rook how they are doing.
No
one is asking Rook what their issue that they need to solve is. Like, when you come back to the alienage in Origins, your family is being sold into slavery, everything's gone to shit, and your companions, they don't have a choice, but they're there to help you fix it.
Yeah.
You only fix other people's issues. You can't talk to your companions whenever you want.
No.
It's only when there's a cutscene or dialogue that's queued up for you, and then you can't go and interact with them and learn more about them. You can't be rewarded for being curious. You just kind of have to do it.
Yes.
So in a lot of ways, I feel like Rook is unfulfilling as a main character and just very lonely.
Yeah. Like, why didn't anyone check in with Rook after Varric died?
Yeah.
To see how they're doing? I feel like that's kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, now that we know for sure that Varric was dead all along, no one ever checks in with Rook.
No.
And even in the previous games, but also in the Mass Effect games, like, people check in with Shepard during the third game at least, and ask her how she is and how she's dealing with everything.
Yeah.
But in the Veilguard, it's like they don't really care.
No.
But this is why it's so sad also that Rook lost Varric, because in Inquisition, Varric is such a big source of support for the Inquisitor, asking like, how are you dealing with all of this throughout the entire game, and like doing the Wicked Grace game to make the Inquisitor feel more relaxed and like among friends, like a person and not just a symbol.
Yeah.
And I feel like Rook really doesn't get that from anyone.
No.
And you get it a little bit from Varric, but then it turns out that it was just Rook. Like
it was you all along.
It was you all along. You were just trying to self-soothe.
Exactly.
Like you were saying.
Sad.
And it's really sad.
And it makes me care about the characters less because it makes me feel like they're selfish.
Yeah, exactly.
And like they can have little conversations with each other. And I like that they are in different locations in the lighthouse, but they're also hanging out with each other. They're not hanging out with you.
But it's so funny when like I love it every time when you catch two companions talking and then they finish their conversation and they just turn to Rook until you leave. It's so awkward. I love it. I
like to put myself right in between.
Yeah. Ooh. Like Nev and Lucanus when you're romancing him.
Oh my god, I am seething with anger.
It's so funny.
It's like he flirts with her more than he flirts with Rook.
Yes.
Which is also why I get irritated where it's like, but what am I? The fucking mailman?
Yeah, like it was so funny because after we recorded last time, when I was a little bit ahead of Lisa in the Lucanus romance, we finished recording and I was hanging out with Hayden while she was playing a little bit more. And Hayden and I are talking in the living room and I just hear the sound of Lisa putting down her headphones and then stomping out and going, "Is that it?
I have other plans for tonight."
Yeah. Drink coffee and
drink coffee and not kiss you.
Yes. Like I texted you and I was like, what if we're just delusional and Rook is like a delusional stalker who thinks that they're dating Lucanus and Lucanus
he's just like, what are you doing in my pantry again?
Yeah, and Lucanus is just trying to like placate Rook because Rook is their boss or his boss.
Oh no, we violated it.
Yeah, like
because I thought the scene with Lucanus when he is in your room is very sweet.
Yes,
he has such, and they like, as much as I've criticized the animation style, he has a very expressive, like, I believe that he was upset. I believe that he really cares for Rook, just in the way that he like looks at her. But I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, the dialogue options, if it's another person, are the same. So it's kind of the same conversation, basically.
That's so
with
disappointing.
Different people, where it's like, what if I'm still in the Fade?
Oh, come on.
Right? Again, could be wrong. I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure that that's it, that it's also the same conversation.
That's disappointing.
Yeah.
It also felt like, because that scene, he was so loving, and
it felt kind of jarring, because it's like, we haven't had this much intimacy.
No, like,
and now all of a sudden.
Was half the romance off screen?
Yeah.
Like, were they flirting?
Was there a beach episode?
Yeah. Where is our beach episode DLC?
Yeah.
I want that so bad.
I feel like if they do make a DLC to soothe the fans, it would have to be a purely like Citadel, like,
yes,
only character focused, no combat. Like, I want a wedding DLC where I can ask Emmerich to give me away.
It would be so sweet.
I want Iago, my boss, to walk me down the aisle.
Did you also get that Emmerich goes into a romance with Strife?
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny because I was a Veil jumper. So it's like, that's literally like my uncle or like my old boss. Did you have some final notes?
I have some final notes on some of the enemies and some of the dialogue. So I'll just tear through those, because I feel like a lot of the mini enemies were kind of hodgepodge thrown in there. Like the Dragon King, we learn about him and then immediately we defeat him. And I feel like it made Tasha's mom into a fridged lady. Like they
Yes.
just put her in the fridge so that Tosh had to grow.
I think the idea with Varric doing the, like, in the beginning with everyone's personal quest, the like animation and the illustrations and they being like, moo, but Nev didn't know that they were, and she was about to meet this person from her past, or like the thing with the Dragon King.
Yeah.
But then it feels like there's almost nothing in between that. And like, and here's the Dragon King. Let's kill him now. That was it. With Harding's quest, it actually works pretty well.
But that's also because we had the Descent
Yes.
DLC. So it's kind of, the groundwork is already laid.
Good point.
Like I said, Davrin's made more sense. In many ways, I think Lucanus's made sense because it was built from the beginning.
Yes.
Like when you get him, that's when his personal quest kicks off.
Yes, and
So
you
it
find a
feels-
note from Zara.
Exactly.
And,
So it's there. Whilst with Tosh, like, yes, it's mentioned, but it's not really dug into because their quest is instead about in between getting them and facing the Dragon King. It's focused on their relationship to their mother.
Yes.
So both the Dragon King and the mother becomes MacGuffins. But yeah, I didn't really enjoy that.
No.
I both enjoyed and really disliked when you infiltrate the Venatori base.
Oh yeah.
Because theoretically, that's a really fun mission.
Yes.
Execution-wise, they did a few things that irritated me.
One thing that I like that I feel like may have irritated you is that I like the tee hee ha ha funny humanization of the Venatori, where they're like acting just like, oh hey man, what's up? It's good seeing you here. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, that's fun. That didn't irritate me at all. And they're like, what do you think Rook smells like? That's also, I found that funny because to me, that is very typical BioWare humor.
Yes, I like it.
And it does a good job of what I complained about before, where it's like the Venatori aren't really people. They're just
I thought about that.
Soldiers. But then the two other things that they did when you were in the Venatori base that I felt, one of them was really distasteful in my opinion, and it's the torturing of the Hala.
Yes.
Because that is such a shock value thing to do, just to try to hammer home how evil they are, that they just torture Hala and find it funny and rooting for it. I think it's a cheap and disgusting shot. I did not like that.
No. I think I actually just sort of almost ran past that. I heard the reference to like, oh, look what they're doing to the Hala, and then I just walked past because I didn't want to see it.
Yeah, but I stayed specifically because I'm like, I think this is disgusting.
Yeah.
And disrespectful in a lot of media. To convey that someone is evil, you have them kick the puppy and kick the woman.
Yeah.
That's how you show that someone is corrupt and terrible.
Yes.
And to me, that was distasteful in that kind of way, where it's like, wow, you really had to go there. Because in the same breath, comical thing that they do is that they have people that are chairs.
Yes.
That they use slaves as chairs. The slaves are also masked. If you wanted to like have the point of they treat slaves terribly, make them NPCs with faces.
Yeah. No, it's, I don't know, it's made it a weird balance between their, because I think the humanizing of the Venatori and the like, what do you think Rook smells like, and the whole thing, that could have also made the horror feel even worse if they had taken it seriously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like the contrast between those things.
Like if you're infiltrating it and they have slaves and they treat them terribly, have a bit where you like, as Rook, have to play along.
Yeah.
And treat someone terribly because you have to pass as a Venatori. So you have to kick the slave or like do something terrible to a person that you actually are there to help. But like that would have been a good, like it would have been a good functional way to like make you feel terrible, make you understand that they actually are kind of terrible people. But instead they just have them as Ottomans.
Yeah. I think that also though would have been, I think a lot of people would have probably not wanted to do that, like as players. I think maybe if they had some sort of way that you could avoid it, but there would be consequences for that as well in some way. But I understand what you're saying and I agree. It's a weird thing, but like the concept is so cool.
Yeah.
But the execution
was terrible, in my opinion. I do enjoy, and I wrote that down as a plus, like I did really enjoy the Algernon versus Solas shading each other and him helping you, because I also think that really built up the betrayal better as well.
Yes, absolutely.
It was really fun to see Solas kind of in action.
Yep.
The dynamic between him and Algernon, and it built up Act 3 beautifully.
Yes, it does.
So that was a really good touch, but the rest of it...
Yeah. I will say that one thing that I've found or struggled with throughout the game, because I think I like most of it, and I really enjoyed playing it, but I wonder where all of the social issues of Thedas have gone.
Yeah.
Like, where is the... Because I think that's also something that helped the world feel real, but it's also, I don't know if this is in an attempt to make the characters, because in some ways, it feels like they're trying to avoid anyone we're supposed to care about being problematic. But that's good when they're problematic sometimes, because, and then if we're able to challenge them on that, for sure. But for example, the whole thing with the Lords of Fortune, this part where they explain that if they find items that seem like they have cultural importance, they return them to that culture.
Yeah, they specifically say the lords are not thieves.
Yeah, and it felt like a very big, like, we're not like the colonizers of the real world who put the items.
We're not the British Museum.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking about. Like, we're not the British Museum, and that Belara could be like, oh, and then Tasha is like, no, this is what we do. And I think that there's a difference between the game showing you that, like, you could have had that the lords don't do that, and then have Belara have an opportunity, or you have an opportunity to confront someone about that. Like, I don't know, maybe Tosh finds a cool artifact that seems like it has cultural significance when you're out on a personal quest mission, and then you have the option to confront them about keeping it and bringing it to the lords.
Yeah, but also not to be that person. Isabella is pointed out as like the leader, right?
Yes.
Oh, we don't steal artifacts. I'm sorry. Did you not steal the most like holy item for the Qun to cause the occupation of Kirkwall?
And don't tell me that incident is what taught her to respect other cultures.
No,
I
because
do not
that's
believe
also
that for
depending
a
on your
second.
world state. She got handed back to them.
Oh,
we
yeah.
don't know like, what do you mean we return? No, you don't.
No, and like, I don't need all. And it's like how they made the crows squeaky clean.
Yeah.
And how they made, like, all of these factions are suddenly just pure.
Yeah.
And there's
it would have made Rook a more interesting character if the orders were just neutral or actually bad.
Yes.
And them being a good person and with good motivations would make them more interesting.
Yes.
Because when you like nerf the crows, that doesn't make them special.
No, exactly. Because, of course, in an ideal society, and a group like the Lords of Fortune would be returning cultural artifacts. Obviously, that's the morally right thing to do. But why does everyone in this game do the morally right thing?
Yeah.
Already.
It works differently because I think having necromancers in a positive way is very interesting.
Yes.
I think that is good. I don't complain about that because in like generally in fantasy, necromancers are like terrible people and evil. And I find it really interesting that in Dragon Age they are. It's just a cultural thing. And it's a positive, like they are good people, and that's interesting.
It is. In the next episode, I want to talk about liches.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else that you want to bring up in this episode?
Kinda. It has to do with meeting the Inquisitor in the cafe.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about Solas, if you have a romanced Inquisitor, which my world state had. You have the conversation where she's like, do you think that I could forgive him, or what should I do?
Yeah.
And you get to choose, oh, they'll be willing to and they would not be willing to, whatever. And you say that, and then they go, so tell me about your boyfriend.
Yeah.
I'm just like, you're complete strangers.
Yeah.
Unless you've headcanoned something else, and that's headcanon, then you are complete strangers.
Yes.
And the world is ending, and you're talking about my boyfriend. They had such a golden opportunity to have the Inquisitor ask that in a way that is veiled.
Yeah.
As in, like, they bring it up, and like, oh, I've heard that you and so have a thing. How far would you go for that?
Yeah.
And like, what would you forgive them for? Like, something like that, so that it's framed as you and your relationship.
Yes.
So that you answer honestly and say, like, I mean, if they do terrible things, it doesn't matter if I love them because the greater good, whatever. Or I would die for them. I would go wherever they go, whatever. Yes. And then that is what ultimately influences her decision. Oh. And that they don't tell you.
That would be so good.
I don't appreciate that they tell you, oh, they would be willing to go. Because then I can kind of figure out what's going to happen. Just have them ask. And it could be in a way where it's like, oh, we're trying to bond a little bit because we don't know each other. I don't know.
Just girls.
Then veil the whole, like, what would you do for a person you love who has done terrible things? And you answer and you don't think about it more than like, oh, that's nice that I can comment on my relationship. That makes it feel more real. And then in the end, you're like, shit.
Yes, absolutely. I think even if you weren't going to have that function, even if the Inquisitor just asked about, like, do you have a support system? How are you dealing with all of this? More like that, asking more out of like, will you be able to handle the situation, or are you about to break?
Yeah.
Kind of more like that. That would have also been interesting.
Yeah.
But the like, let's just talk. Like,
yeah,
what's your boyfriend like? We're just girlies.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be your best friend.
Yeah, because also, and I don't remember. Maybe they did say something like that, but I can't remember them sitting down and going like, I know what it feels like to have like an impossible task ahead of you. Like,
they did say
I
that,
felt
yeah.
so alone, and
I
how
did
are you doing?
feel like the Inquisitor did a little bit of that, like, we're the only two people who knows what it's like to bear this kind of responsibility. There was a little.
Then I just don't remember that.
Because I did appreciate that addition. I think it added a lot to the interaction and relationship between the Inquisitor and Rook. But also weird that the Inquisitor didn't want to talk about Varric. Like, I understand that they were also, obviously they couldn't bring up Varric too much because that would ruin the surprise of Varric actually being dead, of course. But I feel like the way they went about it makes it feel weird that some people who should have really loved Varric, or at least cared about Rook having lost him, should have had reactions.
There should have been at least a conversation between, if not a mention of like, this is what Varric would have wanted, or something like that. Then I feel like there should have been a conversation between the Inquisitor and Harding, who both have worked with Varric for 10 years at that point, asking, how are you holding up since, or about Varric, and they're like, don't even, like, they could have done it without giving it away, but at least then you can go, shit, they were talking about it.
Or even having been able to go like, I can't believe that Solas would actually stab Varric. How are you dealing with that? And you don't have to say killed. You can just be like, I can't believe he would hurt someone who's just trying to talk him down. I feel like that's really been awful, or whatever. And the Inquisitor should have cared about Varric a lot. It's too bad, honestly. But all in all, Act 3 was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
It tied together the entire game. I think I don't know what I would rate the game, but it definitely raised my rating by at least like 2 points.
Yeah, it absolutely made me appreciate the game more. And then since then, I've had kind of a post-nut clarity of, I really don't know what to think.
No. I'm having a lot of fun replaying it. And I honestly think that a lot of the things that I felt like I missed from the Veilguard, especially in regards to like the depth of the companions or something, I have a feeling that if I play this game at least like 2 more times, I will get that feeling back. Because I think that one of the things that gives me this like warm fuzzy feeling about Dragon Age is that I have played through all of the Dragon Age games so many times. And I think that like
when it starts feeling familiar in the same way,
I have a feeling that in a couple of years, the like feeling of absence that I get sometimes from this game is not going to be there anymore. But we'll see. And that doesn't affect how anyone feels about the game now, obviously. But for me personally, I suspect that might happen.
Yeah. Let's cut this episode here, and next one I have some final notes on what I thought about the game, and we'll talk about choices.
Yes.
You can find her at this TikTok handle, and you can find me at this TikTok handle. And then we have the TikTok of this podcast, which is Sit In Judgement. You can find us on YouTube at Sit In Judgement, and on Spotify at Sit In Judgement.
And on Instagram at Sit In Judgement.
That too.
You can find us there. We've started posting some reels as well, with some highlights. So if you just want to see when we actually say funny stuff, you can just watch the shorts.
Yeah, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you.
I'm feeling very judged.